Hello, I'm Sarah. Today I'm here to talk about Symfony. I hope you use Symfony, right? All of you? Oh, okay. So there are some people that doesn't use at all Symfony. Oh, it's going to be a little bit, difficult for you. If you have any questions, just raise your hand, and we have plenty of time, actually. I just have like 10 slides, and that's it. So, okay, so let's begin. Who am I? As I told you, I'm Sarah. I'm a developer. I'm also a teacher. I do some courses on internet. Maybe you know Open Classrooms. It's a website offering to people to get courses and get diplomas. I also love to share. That's why I'm here today. I do some conferences here and there. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, here is my nickname, which is called Saru. And there is also my little friend, Lannister. Here's my cat. If you want to follow him on Twitter, it's Cat Lannister. He uses Symfony too. And yeah, he helps me a lot every day. All right. As I told you before, we are going to talk about overriding, a lot of overriding things. Actually, I have two main parts. The first one is about overriding the structure. I'm only going to talk about Symfony full stack. And the second part will be on overriding everything you have on your bundle, okay? So far, I think you know everything. So, I hope you are very excited. Yeah, you are. Cool. Because, yeah, there was lunch and I was afraid that you were sleeping, so I added some lolcats everywhere. Okay, so first part. I'm going to talk about all of those things, and yeah, just grab my hand. We are going together to see all of those things. First one, overriding app. You know, app is basically the directory you have in your Symfony application, right? If you want to change the name of it, it's quite simple. The first thing you have to do is basically to change the name of the directory. Because as you can see here, in the getName method, which is in the kernel class, which is in the HTTP kernel component, there is some instructions saying, okay, just get the name of the directory and that's it. So if you change it, it will change basically the name of your app, okay? Let me show you something. Easy Publish did that quite easily just by saying, okay, here is the app directory, which is now Easy Publish. And the second thing you have to do is to change the prefix you have here. Before it was app kernel. You know this class very well. You have to know it. And yeah, it works, okay? If you want to change the way the kernel, the root dir is going to be, you just have to change this method here. You can override it directly in your app kernel or whatever kernel class, okay? The second thing you have to do is to make sure that you need to change here in your composer.json file, first this parameter, which is Symfony app dir. Before it was app, now it's whatever you want. And of course, you have to change the path to the parameters.yaml file because it's used by incentive parameters, which is used when you are doing a composer install or composer update when the parameters.yaml file doesn't exist. It takes the parameters.yaml.dist and just copy it and ask for every parameters, remember? And that's it. The second thing here is the cache directory. It's really easy for log and directory. I'm sure you already know that kind of thing. Basically, you just have a method called getCacheDir. And here is the implementation. You will say, OK, but now since Symfony 3, it's var cache. Yeah, it is. you have to just go in the app kernel class, and you will see that it's actually rootdir and directly var cache and whatever. Okay. If you want to change it directly in your app kernel class, you just rewrite everything you need in the get cache dir method. Same thing for log. You have the get log dir method. You just have to change it directly in your app kernel class. Okay. For those two, just remember that for the directories, if you change it, if you change the place in your system, you just have to make sure that those directories can be written by Symfony. Otherwise, you will have a lot of troubles because you have so much files generated by Symfony. If Symfony can't write in those directories, you will have some troubles. Okay, the web directory. The web directory, you know it. You have basically different controllers. You have all the assets you need for CSS, images, and so on. If you want to change the name of the directory or the place, you must change here the requirements which are in the front controllers. When I say front controllers, I'm talking about app.php, app_dev.php, or whatever, okay? And as you can see here, you have two statements saying, okay, I need to require the bootstrap.php.cache, so you will have to change the path to it if you change the web directory. And same thing for the app kernel class, okay? If you don't do it, Symfony won't find the files. So you will have troubles. You have also to change something if you want to change the name of the web directory. Currently, it's web. If you want to change for my new web dir, you have to go in your composer.json file and change the parameters extra Symfony web dir, and that's it. Actually, I'm talking about this because most of the time you need actually to do those kind of things when you are using a shared host, and maybe you need to change the web directory for the name www or maybe public_html or whatever, okay? So it can be useful. The option B is basically to just create a symbolic link, and it will work also. All right. What about vendor directory? You know, vendor is the directory where sits all the library you are using, Symfony or I don't know, other libraries. If you want to change where the vendor library is, you have to add a config parameter which is in the composer.json file called vendor dir, and just say where it is, okay? Of course, you will have to do something in your autoload.php file. Maybe you don't know this file. It's really important. It's in the app directory. And basically, in this file, it imports the autoload.php file, which sits in the vendor directory. So you will have also to change the path to this file too. Okay. All right. Here, I'm just quoting from the documentation of Symfony saying, yeah, it's really useful if you are using a virtual environment. I don't know Vagrant, VirtualBox, but I know that now it's other things like Docker and so on. So, yeah. All right. SRC directory. You know, in there you put your bundles most of the time. And yeah, if you want to change the name of SRC, you can. It's in the composer.json file, and you have something saying autoload PSR0 or PSR4, depending of what you are using. And yeah, you just need to change the name of the directory, like SRC, and now new folder, okay? Of course, remember to run the composer dump autoload command, otherwise it won't work. Bin directory. In bin directory, most of the time you have console, you know, bin console. You have also maybe PHP unit or whatever exec file you need to run. if you want to change the name of this directory, you just have to change the parameter which is in the composer.json file again. And yeah, Symfony bin dir, and that's it. Here I change it from bin to exec. Environment parameters. You know that you have some parameters that begins with Symfony __. This is how you declare environment variables. And there is again, a method in the kernel class which says, okay, everything that begins with Symfony __, okay, grab it and put it in an array called parameters and go through whatever you want, okay? So if you want to change it, you just have to re-implement this method, again, in your app kernel method, and that's it. But you have to know that in Symfony 4, Symfony __, will disappear. So now, the parameters, the environment parameters must be like this. Env, the name of your environment variable, and then the value of it. Okay? Just remember that, because if you continue to use Symfony __, you will have a lot of deprecations for Symfony 4. All right, car set could be useful sometime. Again, in your kernel class, you have a method called getCarSet. You just have to re-implement it and change it for whatever you want. Okay? Session folder. By default, it's in which folder? var session, right? Okay, so again, if you want to change it, now it's in your configuration. So under framework, for the framework bundle, you have something called session, and you have the save path here, depending of which handler you are using. If you are using the, of course, native file handler, you will have to say where the session will sit. So here, before I said, by default, it's in var sessions, blah, blah, blah. You just have to change it right here and say wherever you want, okay? Again, make sure that this directory can be written by Symfony, otherwise you will have troubles. And the last one, config files. Of course, you know how it works because I'm sure you already used it. Basically, if you want to change the way the configuration is read, you just have to change the register container configuration method again, in the class app kernel, and just say, okay, another pass, whatever you want, okay? But you have to make sure that if you change it, you change the way configurations files will be read, sorry. So you know that according to the environment, you will have config _ the environment.yaml. So let's say you are in development, dev. It will begin by config _ dev, and in the config _ dev YAML file, you know that there is an import for the config.yaml, and then it goes through and again. So if you change this way of reading the config files, you have to make sure that everybody knows it, and yeah, everything works correctly. I know that for now, I told you a lot of things, how to change everything, okay? I will tell you that again, but for the first time, don't do all of this. It's not cool. If you're using Symfony, it's basically because you want to make sure that every time a new developer or another developer comes to your project, he knows how to work with your project without telling how it works. If you change everything, you will have troubles, of course, because you have to explain everything again. So you break the framework spirit, okay? But sometimes it can be useful. So I'm just showing all the things, but don't take it like, oh my God, I'm a magician, let's change everything, okay? Of course, you want more, right? Yeah? Okay, lolcats, again. Here with me? Okay. So, second part, it's about overriding bundles, okay? Do you have any questions so far? I think everything is quite okay. Sure.
Is it wise to use multiple kernels?
Oh, I already have had this question. So the question is it wise to have multiple kernels? I would say no. Like, is it wise to have multiple bundles? No. Like, most of the time, you don't need to have to boot all multiple kernels because it's really not hard, but in French we say coûteux. In English I would say it's expensive, right? Yeah. And you have to think about it. So if I don't see any need to have multiple kernels. It's like, okay, I want to have a lot of configurations separated and blah, blah, blah. But yeah, it's really expensive, so it doesn't worth it, I think. Okay. Any other questions? No? Mm-hmm. The yeah. I'm not sure to know why it will change the root. It won't actually. No. No. Because it goes from the front controller. So your front controller has to sit in your web directory. So wherever you put your web directory, your front controller is in that web directory, so you don't have any troubles actually. I think. All right. Okay, let's go through the bundles stuff you have to override them, and I think it will be useful, hopefully. Okay, let's begin with the roots. You have two options, and most of the time I will show you all the options because I'm not here to say do that and do this. Every time I do a conference or when I do a course or something, I'm not like giving the right way to do it. Just, it's possible, do whatever you want. So, option one, let's say you want to override the roots coming from Faust user bundle. Just a question, who uses Faust user bundle? Wow. I don't. Okay. Sorry, guys. Okay, so the first option is easy. I told you here, easiest way. The easy way is basically to don't import the roots in your app config routing.yaml file. You just copy paste all the roots coming from the Faust user routing file and just change it. That's it. It works, right? Easiest way. Option two, you have to do something more. So basically, you have to import the routing file coming from the Faust user bundle, as you can see right here. Faust user resource, blah, blah, blah. Of course, you have to use the @ sign. Then you have to create a new routing file, but not. You have to follow a pattern here. App resources, the bundle name. So for us, it's going to be Faust user bundle right here. Then config, then all the path through the original routing file. Okay? And then you can override the roots you need. That's it. Okay? But to do that, you have to make sure that in here, when you are importing the original routing file, you use the @ sign. Okay? Otherwise, it won't work. I prefer the option one because it's the easy way. Templates. This time, let's say you want to override the famous error.html.twig template. You have, again, two options. The first one is basically to just rely on the way Symfony works. Symfony says, okay, I'm going to look for this exception error.html twig first in the app resources twig bundle, blah, blah, blah. And then I will look for it in the bundle directly. Okay? So if you rely on this, you just have to create this template, new template, in the app resources twig bundle views exception error, blah, blah, blah. Okay? It works for all bundles, where if the bundle is in vendor or in SRC, it doesn't matter. Okay? You just have to say, okay, app resources, the name of the bundle, and then the path to the template. The option 2 is quite different. Here, I rely on the bundle inheritance. So first, I need to implement this method in my bundle class. Okay? So if my class is app_bundle, it will be in the class app_bundle.php. And then I just say, okay, I'm going to override the twig bundle. Okay? So get parent twig bundle. And then I just have to recreate exactly the same path to the template in my bundle, in SRC. Okay? And it will work. Controllers. Yeah, you can override controllers too. So this time, let's say you want to override the show action in the exception controller coming from the Symfony bundle, twig bundle. Okay? To do that, it's quite easy. First, you have to rely on the bundle inheritance. You have to implement the getParent method. Then you need to create your own controller in your bundle. So SRC app_bundle controller exception controller. Then create the show action you want to re-implement. And then implement whatever you want in the action. If you want to, here the third step is optional. You can, call the method coming from the parent. But yeah, you have to extend from the original controller, which is exception controller. Okay? And that's it. You can do whatever you want. To be able to override the controller, you have to make sure that in your roots, when you are doing the name of the root and then default controller, blah, 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 you have to use this kind of annotation, not the @ blah, blah, blah. Okay? So the name of the bundle, the name of your controller, and then the name of the action. Services. Now you have 4 options. I'm sure you are ready for it. Okay, the first one is the compiler pass. Who doesn't know how it works? Okay, quite a few people. So compiler passes are basically a way to modify the container builder. So yeah, I'm not saying the container because the container is the frozen object you have in a class at the end of the whole thing at the beginning of every request. Not every request, but let's say every request. So you have a container builder with parameters. You have also services. You can grab this container builder and add things in there or modify things. When I say things, could be parameters, services, and so on. So basically, when you use a compiler pass, it's a simple class where you have a simple method to implement. You grab the container builder and maybe, I don't know, you want to grab certain services having a certain tag and say all of those services having this tag, I'm going to inject them in another service, for example. Okay? In my example here, because the conference is about overriding, I say that in your compiler pass, you can grab the container builder and change the way you are going to load the services. So let me show you. The first way is basically to grab the container and just register a new service. Let's say you have a service that is declared somewhere, okay, called foo. If you want to change the class, you just have to say, okay, register foo. So the name of the original service, and then the full qualified name of the class you want for this service. The other way is to do this. Grab the definition and set class. Okay? But with this option, you lose the old definition of foo. Could be a problem, it could be couldn't. It doesn't matter actually. Actually, it depends on what you want. This is why I'm bringing you the option 2, the decoration of service. I love this one, actually. I would say use this one. Here, I'm saying, okay, I have a service foo declared somewhere, okay, with a class and so on. And I want to override it. So here, I'm just saying the new service bar is going to decorate foo, and I can access the foo service, so the original service, directly as an argument, so a dependence, from the new service bar. Okay? All right. And yeah, here I'm just saying, here is my new class. That way, I can access the old reference of the service I want to override. And I think it's easier to read, so I prefer this option, actually. A little tip here, maybe you don't know it, but you can deprecate services yourself. From 2.8, the Symfony core team had to deprecate some services because you know that if you are using Symfony 3, you will have some deprecation warnings. They are using this special annotation called deprecated. It can be used in PHP and YAML if you are declaring your services in YAML or PHP. And basically, you just say, okay, here is my my old service, and just say, okay, deprecated, and here is the message I will get in the web debug toolbar with the deprecations. Okay, it could be useful for, I don't know, if you implement some bundles used by other users than you. Okay. In your project with, I don't know, 5 people and you are the only ones to use it, it's like overkill, so don't do this. But yeah, if you are doing open source or whatever, it could be useful to prepare for the next version. The third option is use parameters. Remember in Symfony 2.x and before, you had some certain services inside Symfony where you had some parameters instead of directly the name of the class. Okay, it was removed in Symfony 3.x. Okay, but maybe you are using still Symfony 2.x, so maybe you can say, okay, I'm going to use the parameters. But yeah, as I told you, you don't have any more .class parameters for the services, so it won't be useful for services inside Symfony because those parameters were removed actually because it was dumped in the compiled container. It was really heavy, and it wasn't really useful. So, and yeah, it's not a good practice. So definitely this option is not a good idea. Okay. The fourth option is recreating the service directly in app-service.yaml. Actually, it works. In your services.yaml file, you can create a service with the same name as the service you want to override, and it will work. Okay? So if you, I'm just going to tell you the 4 options. The first one was, remember? You talk too much. Compiler pass. Okay? Compiler pass. Then the second one, which is the best, I think, decoration of service. The third one was parameters, not a good idea. And the last one is directly put your service in the services.yaml file. Okay? Oh, yeah, that's true. Sorry. Yeah, there is a typo here. It's app config. Yeah, definitely. Sorry. All right. How about configuration? I told you before, if you want to change the file config underscore blah, 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 you have to re-implement the register configuration method in your app kernel. but you can also override your configuration directly. You have two options again. The first one is the way you are using it already. You know that the first configuration file imported by Symfony is coming from config_environment. And then it imports the config.yaml file and blah, blah, blah. So it's read from top to bottom. So if you have a parameter declared at the beginning of the file and then at the end of the file, it's the last one that wins. Okay? This is the first way to override configuration. Okay? The second option, again, is to create a compiler path. As I told you before, you can do whatever you want with services, but also with parameters. And as you can access the container builder, you have a special method called setParameters, really easy, name, value, and that's it. Okay? Forms. You can, actually, you have two options again. I wasn't sure before the conference because, yeah, you have so much, you have some differences that appeared from 2.x and 3.0. You know that. Because before, with the types, you could, before, use directly a string to say, OK, I'm going to use the integer type and blah, blah, blah. Now you have to use the full qualified name. So to change now, let's say to override a type, you just have to implement the method getParent here. If you are after 3.0, this method doesn't exist anymore. So you just have to implement the getParent and just change all the things you need in the build form method or other methods. Okay? You have build view and so on. The other way is to use form type extension. But I would say on this one, it's not like overriding. It's like adding a new behavior. You know, in this cookbook, you should try it if you didn't before. The documentation show you how to add just a thumbnail next to a picture, okay? To the name of a picture. So in here, I would say, okay, if you want to override a type and add some behavior, let's say you can use form type extension, but you have a lot of steps to perform this kind of thing. Validation. It's quite difficult for this one because all the validation files are took from Symfony, from your application, then combined, okay? So by default, you cannot override them. But, of course, we have always a solution here. You just have to override, so rewrite the validation things with the same group validation. Okay, so let's say you have this kind of thing. You have, again, first user bundle. I don't use it, but I put all the example on this. So I have my property plain password, not blank, blah, blah, and I use the group's registration. And when I say actually, it's first user bundle. So basically, I just have to rewrite this validation things in my bundle with the groups, another group, let's say. And then I just have to say, okay, use this validation group instead of registration. This way, you can override the validation constraints. Okay? And the last one, translation, you have two options again. The first one is about the fact that all translation files are about domains. So the name of the file at the beginning is really important. So basically, all you need to do is to create this new translation file and put that in your bundle in resources translations. But be careful. If you put the translation file in your bundle, make sure that your bundle is loaded before the one you want to override. Okay? Because the one, if it takes one message, it wins directly. It's not like configurations or parameters, okay? The other way is to directly create the translation file in app resources translations, okay? It always wins. That's it for me. I have some remarks. The first one is that I didn't talk about listeners or even subscribers, but of course you can use it for controllers. Okay, you just have to listen to the kernel.controller event and just say, okay, instead of taking this controller, I will set this controller instead. Okay, but you have to know that when you are using event listeners or even subscribers, it's really hard to debug. And for people that doesn't know your code, it's like, okay, where does it come from? It's like magic. So, but you can do it. Okay, so if you see something like that, just see all the listeners. You can use also the app autoload.php file to override classes also. I don't recommend that, but if you are looking for a bug somewhere, it can come from this, okay? And yeah, you have plenty of other options actually to override Symfony. I showed you the most interesting for me. I hope you learned something, and remember, it's madness. Don't do all of these things. It's quite interesting if you don't know an application and someone did some crazy things and you don't know where it comes from. Now, hopefully, you have some, I don't know, things to look for or some things to do. But yeah, don't do all of those things because the framework spirit is to make sure that everybody in the project knows how it works and follow some guidelines. Thank you very much, guys.